All right, let's bring in Michelle Malkin. She is the senior editor of Conservative Review and the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV. Hey, Michelle, great to see you.
Hi, good to see you all.
Well, the FBI is scrambling to find out who this mole is within the CIA. They've launched a criminal investigation. What do you think about this?
As well they should. I think it's very troublesome to think about so many of our programs endangered by these kind of leaks. I was concerned about it under the Bush years when so many of these very highly sensitive operations were exposed, and you have to ask for what purpose and towards what end. Just because some of these leaks may benefit one party or the other doesn't mean it's necessarily in the best interests of this country.
Well, and to your point, Donald Trump, when he was running for president, said, I love WikiLeaks after the John Podesta stuff came out. Now it's kind of like, well, WikiLeaks, whose side are you on? They're just on the side of exposing stuff, and I suppose their point of view is, I think the American people need to know how much their government can spy on them.
That is certainly true, but I think, especially if you have a broader view of American history and certainly the role that many of those institutions have played in protecting this country over the years, and especially in the age of global jihad, I think that there's a lot of civic education that needs to be done on that hasn't been done, and people have lost sight of that.
I also think that Julian Assange has not done anything negative to Russia in about 7 years, and I think that he's doing the Russians' work, and there's nothing admirable about anything he's doing, as he's holed up at the Bolivian embassy over in London. But meanwhile, you wonder where this is going to stop and where the investigation is going to start. This actually they actually found out about this in the fall, and now the documents are just beginning to get released. 99% of these documents have not been released yet.
Yes, Brian, and I think that is especially chilling. Now, I will say, I suppose on WikiLeaks' behalf, that they did redact
the code.
However many lines of code there are, but I think that there obviously was an implicit threat that at any moment they might release that as well for their purposes.
Sure.
So that's troublesome.
Michelle, let's back up one topic. Griff Jenkins was live on Capitol Hill, where now this House Ways and Means Committee has passed on to the full House Budget Committee now the Republicans' plan to repeal and replace. The Wall Street Journal's got an item today about how hospitals, doctors, and even seniors are urging Republicans to put the brakes on this plan because they just don't like it. It's not what they had thought they were going to get. Do you like the plan?
I do not, and I think it behooves limited government conservatives in Washington, D.C. to push as strongly and fiercely as possible for the best repeal and replacement. As for the doctors' lobby and the AMA, well, they helped get us into this mess because they allowed themselves to be tools for Obamacare in the first place. And one might say the same thing about so many of the other industry lobbyists, let alone the big labor bosses who all signed on to Obamacare in the first place.
And the insurance companies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many of these lobbies have dug their own graves. And meanwhile, millions of people who are in the individual market, like myself, who are self-employed, who do not get health insurance through corporations, they're the ones that got so screwed. And they have no lobby. There's nobody speaking for them.
And we don't even know how much it's going to cost. They have not received the score from the Congressional Budget Office, and they don't know how many people are going to get knocked off of the health care rolls. But ultimately, it's all about choice. If you don't want to buy insurance, you won't be forced by the government.
Yeah, that's right. And look, the problems that were created in the first place that Obamacare were supposed to solve were the problems of government intervention. So the less of it that we have, the better off we will all be. I mean, I had 3 health insurance plans in the individual market in Colorado canceled because of Obamacare.
Wow. All right, well, Michelle, he ran on repealing and replacing that. That's getting done. He also ran on his immigration stances, and it looks like he's getting credit, at least, for being tough on immigration. The number of illegals crossing the border has dropped dramatically since he's been elected. If you compare the numbers from January to February, back in January, there were more than 31,000 that had come over, and in February, about 19,000. So a big drop.
Yeah, well, that's because he actually has credibility on the issue, unlike so many of the Democrats and Republicans who sat in Washington and paid lip service to border security and didn't do anything about it. I think the Trump effect is simply that by pledging allegiance to the rule of law, he is deterring people from coming here and breaking the law in the first place, and, of course, separating their own families to do it.
But, you know, what's interesting is people, including Mike Bloomberg, the mayor here, says, how can you separate families? General Kelly was asked about that and goes, yeah, we're considering it. You know why? He wants to send the message to people. This is not the answer. You know, you've got to stay in your country and work it out. You can't come here and try to circumvent the system. It's all about who's got the magnet. Is it south or is it north? He's shutting off the magnet.
Yes, that's right, and that is the humane and compassionate thing to do. I think that immigration enforcement activists and advocates are finally showing who the people are that are making life worse for these young kids. I mean, you've got drug cartels and human traffickers who are exploiting this situation, shoving unaccompanied minors here, and there's a whole entire racket that was created by the Obama administration for Central American minors who are taking advantage of the system because they're coming here, they're being reunited with their illegal alien families who are then collecting taxpayer subsidies to provide foster care for their own illegal kids. That's another scam that has to be shut off.
Okay, so you got illegal immigration on our southern border dropping 40% in the first month as President of the United States. And then up in Rutland, Vermont, the mayor there, who's been mayor for, I think, 5 terms, he is not being reelected because he had, as part of his campaign pledge, he said, we're going to bring into this town of 16,100 new Syrian and or Iraqi refugees every year. The people there didn't like it. They didn't like the secrecy, the way it was being done. They didn't like the idea of security as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
what's the message there?
That's right. Well, the message is that it's not just, you know, right-wing communities that are understanding the impact. It's not just at the border. It's on the interior in tiny little communities like this where, you know, bleeding hearts are understanding finally that, you know, it's their own native population that loses because it's welfare, it's education, it's health care, it's all of those costs. And to say nothing, of course, of the potential national security and public safety risks. And you see more and more of these Democratic mayors whose eyes are being opened to it.
You know what's so interesting? This is a micro level, actually a small town of Vermont, I get it. But it's the same thing you could say about Germany, the same thing you could say about France, the same thing you could say about the country. We have big hearts, but your first loyalty, if you're a leader, is to your citizens and what's in their best interest. And these leaders are losing their job in elections because they're not listening to their people. They're not looking out for the people to put them in office.
Yeah, that's right. And on my show on CRTV.com at Michelle Malkin Investigates, we've got an entire show on the rape refugee crisis, another one on a cross-country jihadist that came to this country, and then, of course, the economic security as well. So this is why, you know, people are revolting against things like H-1B. It is systemic. It is systemic, the ways in which American politicians have not been looking out after American citizens.
Right.
Well, there's a new sheriff in town. We've heard that, and there are some changes. All right, Michelle Malkin, thank you very much for joining us today.
You bet. Take care.